after the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to the community beginning Friday, February 17th. I am joined today by Samantha Carlson, NHF's own, a licensed medical social worker and the Senior Manager of Research Programs and Partnerships here at NHF. I am also joined today by NHF's Research Grants Administrator, Joynita Willis. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Alson. We're so happy to be here today, and we're so excited to talk about grants, fellowships, and awards through the research department at NHF. Joy will be joining us through the chat and dropping some links in the chat throughout our conversation today. So let's go ahead and get started. As we start all of our meetings, we'd love to highlight the mission statement of NHF because it's such a core base of our foundation of what we do here in the research department. The National Hemophilia Foundation is dedicated to finding cures for inheritable blood disorders and addressing and preventing the complications of those disorders through research, education, advocacy, and enabling people and families to thrive. Research impacts all of us. It broadens our understanding of healthcare, and it impacts everything that we experience as a patient or as a lived experience expert on the patient side or caregiver side, as well as on the scientific or healthcare provider side. The chemical, mental, biological, physical aspects of research really do impact the way that we have care given to us through our healthcare providers. It advances the science and improves clinical care options for shared decision-making conversations and engagement in that multidisciplinary team discussion. And then research also improves quality of life for people living with serious health conditions, and that's a lot of our folks in the blood disorder community. So we thank all of the researchers contributing to that, and we hope to have a great discussion today. So NHF is committed to advancing the discoveries for inheritable bleeding disorders and blood disorders in the research community by stimulating and supporting breakthroughs in innovation, investing in and developing and advancing multidisciplinary healthcare providers and researchers, bringing them into the hematology community, as well as retaining them so that we have consistency and build upon their expertise to provide quality care for those in our community, and then promoting person-centric research, including health equity, diversity, and inclusion principles. The NHF research grants support research in the following areas on the right-hand side of your screen. So the biological mechanisms, that science part of research that we all know and hear about in healthcare, novel therapies and technology that is advancing and evolving to enhance care, translational science, clinical advances, quality care, and health equity. All of this impacts our experience in the clinic. The NHF Research Department has a vast variety of programs, and we're not going to talk about them all today, I promise. We are going to talk about our grants and fellowships and awards, but we do want to highlight that we have a lived experience expert patient registry, the Community Voices in Research, which you'll hear more about later this year, so please stay tuned to that. We have our Research Journal Club, which is a virtual platform where we talk about emerging publications and advances in research. We have NHF conducted research. We have the State of the Science, which we facilitated in 2021, and we are building upon by building the National Research Blueprint, that outline of how we as an entire bleeding disorder community can advance care and research for those that we serve. And then the virtual advisory panels, where it's basically caregiver and patient focus groups to sponsors to talk about what life is like living with a bleeding disorder, and many, many more projects. So please do check out our website, our page on the research page of NHF for more of that. But today we're talking about grants. So funded grants through the NHF Research Department. This is the spectrum of what we provide. Some years we will provide all of these opportunities through the application process. Sometimes we have a smaller component. We can have an application process that can have anywhere from 8 to 12 awards a year, depending on many, many different factors. So we'll walk through all of them today. The JGP, or the Judith Graham Pool, is our flagship. That has been over 50 years of grants through NHF. Judith Graham Pool was a physician who discovered the method of extracting clotting factor from human plasma. in the 60s. And that really changed the way that we care for the folks that we do in our community. So in the JGPs, we have, that's an introductory scientific research grant. And I'll go back one slide and show you what that is for early basic researchers. Preclinical research, it started in 1972. It was the first award that NHF has provided for research, and it's $52,000 a year for up to 2 years for those researchers. The next is a newer award that we have, the Jean Marie Lusher, another innovative leader in our community in the scientific field of hematology. This is also for early researchers, but looking at diverse backgrounds, underrepresented scientists through other various ethnic populations or other communities. We've been working with historically Black colleges, the minority medical student groups through many of the medical schools in the United States to evaluate and recruit folks to the hematology field that might not be interested in hematology, but have that science background and really want to focus on and move forward with research. The recruitment and retaining the diverse workforce is incredibly important with our health equity initiatives. And that started in 2021. It's $52,000, and it's once a year that award goes through, and that's for up to 3 years. The career development is for mid-level researchers. This is subcellular, cellular animal models and human levels. And this started in 2000. So we had several years where we didn't have any new awards. And this is the newer award that helped that next level researcher move forward in the hematology space of research. That's for $70,000 for up to 3 years. The Innovative Researcher Award, or we call it the IIR, is for any discipline in the HTC, the Hemophilia Treatment Center team, for novel technologies and advancements in therapies. This award started in 2018. It's for $60,000 for up to 12 to 18 months. And the Bridge Award is supported through our board of directors, and that is for the experienced researcher who is looking for a more advanced award through the NIH, such as an R01 grant or equivalent, and looking at basic translational or patient-oriented research. And that's for $125,000 for up to 1 year. We also have 3 excellence fellowships, the nursing, social work, and physical therapy excellence fellowships. This is the multidisciplinary approach that we have in the clinics. So we have that research that's going on in the clinics looking at mental health impact or physical therapy impact, or the nursing aspect of that multidisciplinary care team and coordination of care for the individuals that they serve. So some of the questions that we get from the community are, what does that timeline look like, and what kind of funding has gone into research from NHF over the years? As you can see at the bottom of your screen, the total NHF funding for research as of 2022 was over $16 million. That's a huge impact in advancing care. As you can see at the top, we have over 100 JGPs that we've given out over the 50 plus years. Now we're going into 51, the CDAs, etc. So you can see from the slide that we're really making some advances. We also want to note that the Excellence Transition Awards came to the research department from the medical education department in 2021, and that we started to evaluate what the process was through something called a deep dive in 2022. And we'll talk about that a little later. But we evaluated this time frame that you're looking at from 1972 through 2022. What does that process look like for the application? How are we evaluating our researchers that we're funding? How are we highlighting them and helping them advance their careers? So let's talk a little bit about what the process of the application is for funding. Recruitment. You probably have seen our emails. Our communications through our awesome communication team and our website has gone out through the e-blasts. We also talk with our partners in the community. So HTRS will push out the announcement of our application process to all of their members, etc. So we really do look at how can we expand that network when we have newer grants like the JML? how do we get to those other institutions that we haven't tapped into from the bleeding disorder community to talk a little bit about how people can apply. So what does that look like? Once we've opened an application cycle, some of the grants require a letter of intent. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see what that means. So there are deadlines for the LOIs, or the letters of intent, posted on NHF's website, and that's sent out through the e-blast. We give that information also to the NHF working groups, the social work working group, the nursing working group, and physical therapy working group, to make sure that they push that out to the regions, and then also talk with our community partners. Submitting that letter of intent goes through our website. So when you go on our website under the specific grant that we're talking about, you'll see a submit your letter of intent button. You click it there and it will send it through to our team at the research department. So what if you look at our website and we don't have a cycle open right now, like we don't right now, but we will soon. How would you be notified if you're not on the emails? Well, you can go ahead and go on, subscribe to the email updates from the research website page and select research and medical advancement, and you will get those updates in your email on a regular basis. So we're hopeful that about March 1st, we'll have an announcement of what awards we will be accepting applications and LOIs for this year, and that will start the clock for that application process. So it's really important that you subscribe to make sure you get the latest information. Each of the applications vary a little bit. So the Excellence Fellowships for Nursing, Social Work, and Physical Therapy do not require an LOI. So that automatically starts that application process. So when you go to that portion of our website, you'll see there's a request an application button. When the individual gets their application, it's a personalized link through our Qualtrics system that allows them to go back to the application, look through what is required, and then submit it, hopefully by the deadline. So what does that time frame look like? Once the LOIs are received by the deadline, we are able to go ahead and process them through the NHF Research Department review, and then also our peer review committee. Our peer reviewers are an amazing group of folks who volunteer their time and expertise in specific fields to evaluate the applications and LOIs that we receive, the letters of intent that we receive, and evaluate if it's a viable project, if it meets the criteria and recommendations of what the focus is for NHF for that application cycle, and move forward from there. If LOIs or applications are submitted after the deadline, unfortunately, we are not able to accept them or move them forward. An email is sent to the grantee or the applicant with the personalized link, like I mentioned, and then also talking about the details of the requirements, as well as NHF's policies and procedures. So what does an application look like? Well, I tried to put it on one slide for you so you could have a snapshot. And I'm sorry, this is pretty dense in text, but the application's pretty intense. It really takes a look at getting every aspect of the angle to make sure that NHF is successful in supporting the researchers that are awarded, as well as the researchers that are being funded are successful in their projects and can continue to build their careers moving forward. So the application has obviously the demographics information, education, training, background, commitment to the career in bleeding disorders, making sure that the folks that we are supporting in research are really committed to this community and hoping to stay and move forward and advance the care for all of those that we serve. And then looking at the funding that they currently have. So if they have applied for other funding, if they have pending funding, past or current funding. A letter of support from the institution, medical director, and mentor. It's important to know that that researcher is going to be supported as they will be supported from NHF, but it's a partnership to make sure that we're really supporting that work. And then the advancement of the administrative support from their financial institution. Looking at the project title, summary, and abstract, the references, obviously, anticipated timeline, and then the proposed budget. And the budget constraints that we have with our policies and procedures as a nonprofit organization through NHF. The assurances and certification for research, obviously for ethical evaluation of research through the IRBs. We are required to have the NIH bio sketch for the applicant and their sponsor or mentor. And then a signature page from the institution with the grantee, applicant, the mentor, the medical director, and the institution. And the institution as in the financial office. So while we are funding research and programming, there's also a lot of clerical and supportive documentation we need to make sure that in their audits and our audits that we have on documentation and file. An application, once submitted, the timeline for that can be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, depending on our peer review process and evaluation of the review, which we'll go into. So what does that review process look like? We have amazing peer reviewers. If I didn't mention that before, I want to make sure that we highlight our volunteers. Thank you so much for that process. They will take the information from the application. They review it based on their expertise. It is a confidential panel of reviewers, and this is selected based on obviously what the application content is. This is the same process as the NIH. The peer reviewers evaluate the application before they have a meeting, and then they have a discussion in a meeting, or the peer review committee, talk about the significance, the approach, the innovation, the investigator, and the environment. So the significance, is this viable and significant to changing the healthcare field for our population? Is the approach realistic? Is it something that is in a good time frame? And is it something that seems reasonable? The innovation, is this something new? Is this emerging thought or technology or research? The investigator, are they supported by their mentor? Do they really have an investment in our community, and are they really dedicated and curious to advance that science or clinical care? And then the environment, is the institution supportive? Do they have a history and track record in this, or is this something new for their field? And do they have the support to make sure that it's a successful project? And then the reviewers make a recommendation to NHF, and NHF makes a determination based on all of those factors and then notifies the applicant. If the applicant is awarded, the next steps go through contracting, as well as the communication plan and the communication plan toolkit that is given to the institution for announcements. And that process can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the contracting system and the institution's legal assessment of the agreement. If the application is denied, constructive feedback is given to the applicant, because we really want to make sure that we are supporting and encouraging that curiosity and that broadening that research scope in the bleeding disorder community. So that constructive feedback is meant to assist with grantsmanship and possibly getting future funding sources. When we have an applicant that is funded through our programming, there are several things that happen. We have routine progress reports on the science or the clinical impact of the project, touching base every 3 to 6 months to see how the researcher's doing. Do they need any support from NHF from their project process? And what does it look like? How is it going? Has there been publications, etc.? Also, we do have an ongoing financial audit to make sure that the funds are being used appropriately and in compliance with NHF policies as agreed upon at the beginning of the agreement. We also feature a lot of our awardees on various social media platforms. Obviously, you've seen them on this Wednesday webinar series frequently. Speaking opportunities, NHF's Bleeding Disorder Conference, which is coming up in August. I'm sure you're all getting very excited about. Research Journal Club, Wednesday webinars as mentioned, etc. And then engaging in the future of NHF research opportunities. Once we have folks that we have supported financially through these processes in this program, a lot of times they will engage with us on other projects that we're doing in the NHF research department, as discussed before. The State of the Science, National Research Blueprint, grant revisions, that deep dive we talked about, and then also our peer reviews. So thank you. NHF has a commitment to improving and advancing how we provide research programming and partnerships in the community. In 2022, we evaluated the grant process. What does that look like? How is the process evolving? Is it flowing well and supporting those that we need? What are the timeframes, and how does that integrate into the academic year for those that are at academic institutions? etc. So we really took an evaluation of that, and that took a lot of people. We had an amazing group of volunteers, of past awardees, of peer reviewers, of some of the working group folks from the National Research Blueprint, went through and evaluated our grants and made recommendations to NHF. So what will happen from that, NHF is evaluating all that feedback, such rich discussions in meetings and a lot of information submitted in writing. And we're evaluating what those enhancements for our research funding can be in the future. And we hope to explore that and announce that this year. Then in exploring partnerships and evolving the bleeding disorder community, you know, we have, it's a small community, but a mighty community. And there are a lot of other nonprofit organizations and other clinics and researchers that are doing some wonderful work that we'd love to partner with and see how we can continue to support researchers in our field. Here's an example of some of our JGP fellows. As you may know, the JGP is funded through generous donations from our chapters, in which we are amazed every year that we have the opportunity, and very privileged and thankful that we have that support from the community. These are our current JGPs. We'll have an announcement of the ones from the end of the year in 2022 coming up soon. So stay tuned and please do watch our website for those announcements. Finally, we want to end with one of many of the tributes that we had from a past JGP. Dr. Gordon Dehart did a tribute to the Judith Graham Poole 50th anniversary last year. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and then we'll go to Carlson for questions and conversation.
I'm Gordon Dehart, the Vice President within Research at BioMarin Pharmaceutical. I'm honored to add my story to the significance that a Judith Graham Poole Fellowship can have on a young scientist. When I finished my PhD in biochemistry in 1976, I entered the blood coagulation field as a postdoctoral fellow studying factor VIII at the University of Washington. I applied for a JGP fellowship to support a truly basic research proposal, far removed from any clinical application, and I was fortunate enough to obtain the grant. This active support and vote of confidence in a new researcher in the field served to greatly motivate my efforts in the laboratory. I was also fortunate to be able to attend an annual NHF meeting to report on my work, and in the process get exposed to the hemophilia families and community, an experience that gave me insight to the impact my truly basic research efforts might one day hopefully have. A long story short, my project was successful and led to my leaving academia and joining a biotech startup called Genentech, to use my coagulation knowledge to guide the application of recombinant DNA technology to develop recombinant factor VIII, an effort that was successful. The JPG Fellowship, my first and only grant, was a great vote of confidence to a young researcher and served as the foundational basis and motivation for my continuing efforts in the biotechnology industry, hoping to play a role in expanding hemophilia therapeutic options. I remain to this day greatly appreciative of the JGP award at the beginning of my career.
With that, thank you for those that have supported us, whether it's been donations and funding towards providing the opportunities for grants, participating by applying and receiving grants, or volunteering for our peer reviews, all of our other programs through the NHF Department of Research. And we'd love to open the floor for questions. Carlson?
That was fantastic. Thank you. Real quick before we go ahead and get started with the Q&A, we have a couple announcements to make. Let's see. Whoops, sorry. It is time to lace up your running shoes. NHF is participating in the 2023 United Airlines New York City Half Marathon on Sunday, March 19th, just a couple weeks away. So we know it's coming in tight, but if you are a runner and you're prepared to run, we are still accepting applications to represent NHF at the New York City Half. There are travel stipends available and you are guaranteed entry if you want to go. So visit hemophilia.org/events to learn more. And finally, nominations are still open for the Awards of Excellence through May 5th. You can go to hemophilia.org/BDC, click on that program tab, and then click again on Awards of excellence. From that page, you'll find the nomination form. Self-nominations are not allowed at this time, but if you have someone you want to nominate or you think someone can nominate you, go ahead, head on over, fill it out. You have until May 5th. Okay, and let's go ahead and get started on some questions. So on average, how many awards go out every year?
It depends on the year. On average, it's anywhere from 6 to 10. There have been years where there have been 12.
Fantastic. So you mentioned this briefly, but we'll elaborate on it further in this question. How is NHF getting funds to support these activities? And are you ever worried that these may dry up? It's a big question.
Well, it's perfect timing because we have the donation slide up on our screen. NHF explores a variety of different funding options. In the past, there have been industry partners who have supported and partnered with NHF's research department for some of the awards like the CDA. The board of directors supports the Bridge Award. The JGPs are generously supported by our partners in the chapters, which is just amazing. And then NHF has funding and support through other various options for the rest of the award.
Awesome. How long does it take to find out if you have received a grant or an award?
We try to expedite that as soon as possible because we know it impacts the research and it impacts the clinic, et cetera. So I would say it would hopefully be 4 to 6 weeks. In a rare case, it can be 8 weeks. It just depends.
Great. How long does it take for someone to fill out an application?
As you saw on the application slide, there's a lot of content. So typically, once we open the LOI, once they're notified that they have the opportunity to be invited to apply, that starts the timer and the clock, and it can be 4 to 6 weeks for the application, so they can really gather that information. During the application process, if there are questions that an individual has or they want clarification, they are more than welcome to reach out to our team at NHF in the research department, and we will gladly assist them and clarify.
Are there any topics that will not receive a grant?
We have seen some amazing applications. I think the biggest takeaway with that question is the grants support funding for the blood disorder community and advancing the care, whether it's in the basic science through the clinical research and what patients experience in the clinic. So it needs to be focused on the bleeding disorder community. It needs to be focused on, it can be focused on the blood disorder community, but definitely in hematology.
What would you say to someone who is on the fence about applying for a grant?
I would recommend they call us. We have our contact information, our emails, our phone numbers on the website. They are more than welcome to give us a call and have a conversation and talk about what they're looking to do with the funding, what their idea or project is, and which application might be the best for it. Or if we don't have an application open for that specific topic or project, we might connect them with one of our colleagues at another nonprofit organization that might be supporting it. Give us a call. We're happy to talk.
What are some examples of excellence awards?
That's an excellent question. If you looked at our website, and I believe Joy put it in the chat, I think it's the first thing that she put in the chat. Research funded by NHF, there's a plethora of information. So from a social work perspective, we've had mental health, post-traumatic stress evaluations, we've had aging, we've had folks evaluating collaborations with multidisciplinary aspects, so nursing and social work, looking at some of the transitions in care that individuals will have going from pediatric to adult. In physical therapy, we've had folks evaluating joint bleeds and function and engagement in activities of daily living. So that's really where the excellence awards are really where the clinicians in the clinic look at what they're doing with their patients and have a project or an idea and say, you know what, this would really be something that I'd like to see expand. And I'd like to evaluate the data and how it impacts the care of the individuals that I'm serving. And that's where the research begins. And the wonderful thing about that as well is it can be highlighted at BDC as well as also duplicated across the country. So it's really fun to see that progress.
Wonderful. And for our final question, I am thinking about applying for a grant, but I have some questions. What should I do?
They should definitely contact the research department. So there's an email that you can email at research@hemophilia.org, or you can go to our website and there's all of our contact information on the right-hand side on the tiles for the staff for the research department. Please contact us.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank you once more, Sam, for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you.
Of course. And I'd like to thank each one of our viewers for joining us. Please note that this recorded webinar will be available on Friday, February 17th at hemophilia.org under the events tab with all of our archive webinars. Also available in the events tab is our upcoming schedule for our weekly Wednesday webinar series. Thank you. Geez Louise. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and have a wonderful week. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Carlson.
Yeah.